So you owned a Miata in high school, and then you went through college and you got that big corporate job in finance, or you're an engineer or something like that, and you're like, you know what, it's about time for me to go drop $60,000 to $70,000 on a brand new BMW, but you don't want something heavy. But BMW luckily has you covered, and they show you this. This is the BMW Z4 M40i, and it is one of the lightest BMWs that you can get today. And today, I'm going to be reviewing it. I'm Aiden, and you're watching God Next. Now, under the hood, this is where the fun all stems from. This is going to be the turbocharged inline-six from BMW, dubbed the B58, 382 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque. That's not the highest power numbers you've ever heard come out of a car, but when it comes to a car of this size, it's quite a bit, and especially when you actually put it into use, it can lead to a really fun time. It all connects to a ZF 8-speed transmission, rear-wheel drive. Like I said, they try to combat the weight distribution thing and the lower weight and the high amounts of power with large rear tires to combat how squirrely the rear end can get. I guess BMW stuck 275s back there just to make sure it wasn't as squirrely. You have 255s up front as well. But overall, you know, I think this is the right powertrain for the car. If you want a little less of a if you want a little less fun, you can get the B48 through just the standard regular Z4, but I think if you're just going to get a Z4, you might as well go all the way with it, spend the $70,000, and there you go, you have a B58. Now, the Z4 is truly special, not only because it is the lightest car in BMW's lineup. It's lighter if you get the manual and then the inline-4 and everything like that, because then it weighs, I think, 3,300 pounds instead of the 3,500 pounds that this one weighs with the B58 and the automatic transmission. But it's special because there's no formula like this in BMW's lineup anymore. Sure, you can get an M car, but those things weigh 3,900 pounds, and they do make an extreme amount of power, but you know, it isn't the right package. I feel like what they did with this one is kind of what Porsche does with the Boxster. Not a ton of interior space, but because of this car's weight and because of the fact that it makes 382 horsepower from this B58 motor and sends it all to the rear, that this becomes a really enticing package for people looking for a performance car kind of feeling. I mean, and that's what it is, a performance car. And to be honest with you,
My Supra.
Kick rocks! Anyways, it is a really nice package, and when it comes to how BMW released this car, they released the concept a couple years ago, probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago. They released the concept for this car in a greenish color, and I believe they released it along the concept, maybe it was along with the concept of the 8 Series. I'm not sure, it was so long ago, but I do remember what the concept looked like, and it looks very similar to the actual release version, production version of this car. A little bit different tweaks up front, considering the headlights are a little different, the grille's a little different. But what I do appreciate is that BMW hasn't completely gone and mucked up this design like they have with a bunch of their other cars. Luckily, they fired that designer. But if you look at the way this car looks, the grills aren't completely oversized. The headlights look great. I think it's the best version of the Z4 any generation has ever looked. This is the best looking generation out of all of them. The performance specs on this thing are incredible. In the rear, you have 275 tires. Up front, you have 255s, and this thing still can get it around a corner if you push it. But yeah, and I gotta say, for a convertible, this thing does look pretty good with the top up. Of course, we have it down right now just to show off what it looks like when it doesn't have the top up. But, you know, overall, I think just the entire setup of the Z4, the way it looks, and how much fun you can have driving it, really make the Z4 what it is. Now, when it comes to the interior of the Z4, it is a tad bit cramped, but let's go over the positives before the negatives in here. This is the magma red interior. These seats are unique to the Z4 only, and I love the way they look, and I love how they've given them this Z4 style that adds a little bit of uniqueness to this car instead of just giving it the standard, like, 3 Series or 4 Series seats. The interior has also a bunch of M Sport stuff because this is the M40i. Of course, you have the M Sport steering wheel. The steering wheel is heated. All your center controls are still on iDrive 7 on this car, and I gotta say, it's about time for BMW to update this interior, but considering that they're not doing that, I'm assuming this car's lifetime doesn't really have that much longer because they haven't really touched the interior of this car. Harman Kardon sound system, heads-up display, digital gauge cluster, all the nice bells and whistles that you'll get out of a modern BMW. And I gotta say, the driving dynamics of sitting in this car and actually driving it are very nice. But there are, of course, some downsides. Interior room is pretty lackluster. When I was driving this car for the first time, it kind of reminded me how I felt sitting inside a Miata. I like the larger sedans, like the 4 Series is the perfect size coupe for me, or a sedan, midsize, or smaller compact ones. But when it comes to the Z4 and this the comparison between other cars, it kind of reminds me of the interior of a Miata, and when I drove the Miata, that's one of the only things I didn't like about it, is feeling so cramped. The visibility in here isn't bad at all when driving it, but yeah, that's basically my only gripe. But of course, BMW does different things to combat that. They've put the cup holders inside the center thing right here with the USB Type-C. You have a USB-A up there and a wireless charger and a 12-volt socket. And then there's additional storage back here behind the cargo net that you can store, like, I don't know, your title information, but you also have a glove box, so you can store whatever you want back here. The speaker system's pretty interesting in here as well. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 speakers behind the front seats, and of course you have the ones in the 2 in the doors, and the center one all the way up here. The Harman Kardon system in here is nice. The only issue with it, I would say, is the balance is a little weird, and I think that's because when it comes to the surround sound stuff, there being so many speakers behind the seats, that it kind of feels like it's coming back from here a lot, which can throw off the balance in your ears. So that's the only gripe I have with the sound system. But other than that, the interior's nice. It's just not my style. Now, before we get on the road, like earlier I said, the size of the Z4 is what kind of turns me off from owning one. I did the review of the M240i around a year and half ago maybe, and that's about the smallest I could probably go in a car. And that's got the exact same powertrain this car has. It's just heavier and a little bigger, but no one can really complain when you have this. Jeez. It is way quicker than I expected it to be, and I don't know why. I had the M4, the S58, and over 500 horsepower, but then I forgot that when you take this motor and put it in a package like this or something like the Supra, which, thank you Evo for making a comment, I think when you package it like a Supra or like the Z4, this power becomes plenty to have fun with. And it's not like I have stability control off. You don't need to mess with the safety settings of this car to allow you to have fun with it. And I think that's the entire point, is that BMW doesn't require you to make yourself unsafe, because they kind of coddle you in this environment where they want you to have fun, I feel like. And that environment, even though at times it can feel like you're losing control of the car, you're not. And the systems will always be there to kind of pull you back to the center and rebalance the car for you. You don't have to do anything crazy with it to really get to experience what this car is capable of doing. And whatever they did with the exhaust on this car compared to the other M light cars or M sport cars is pretty nice. Just the burbles and the pops in the back without really having to touch this car on a tuning basis, that's nice. And that is something that I've been missing in BMWs. This kind of reminds me of like, this kind of like reminds me back when the F generation of M cars was out, and where they felt more engaging and less assistive, and this car feels like that. Not because it is those cars, because it's not, but I don't know, this car just feels so much more engaging. It makes less power than the M cars, but in the end, I don't think that matters. It is a tad bit expensive on its new starting price, like $70,000, $66,000 actually, but once you get it delivered and you put on whatever options you want, it's going to be $70,000 or more. This one right now has 50,000 miles on it. It feels like this car's been clearly taken care of, because it doesn't feel like it has 50,000 miles on it. But it's going for 43 grand. And I think when you put it in context of this car's $43,000, and this is all the performance you can get for $43,000, which is cheaper than something like a new Mustang GT now, I think you could have so much fun with this because it feels more engaging than a car like a Mustang GT. And it's faster. It just doesn't have that V8 noise. That's the only difference. But honestly, with this B58, I don't really care. Gosh. And the ZF 8-speed, as always, is probably one of the best torque converter automatics on the market. And the 8-speed that BMW's been using forever, they keep refining it and keep tuning it to match the cars that they're releasing. And I think the Z4 kind of brings the B58 and the ZF 8-speed, and it brings together what BMW's really good at and creates this. I'm gonna go back around the bend here. The steering feels good though, because it isn't a Miata. There is some, you know, it still has weight. 3,500 pounds isn't super light, and it's not really light at all, but it's light in terms of a German car these days. There's still a bit of body roll around corners. So the suspension definitely isn't as tight as I would like it for an M Sport car, but gosh, it's just, I didn't expect it to be this fun to drive for a Z4 because I'm so used to like the assistiveness, which this is assisted, but it just feels less assisted than something like an M240i or M340i or M440i. Oh, and just those pops and burbles, just, you get that by default. This car's stock. And the transmission is quite responsive for downshifts. Like that's, I don't know how to put it. $43,000 is such an enticing deal in my opinion that more people should be driving these. And it's unfortunate because I honestly don't think this car is going to be around much longer. BMW doesn't really sell enough of the Z model line to justify its existence, especially in a world where we don't, at least in the States, people like bigger cars. I thought he was turning. People like bigger cars in the States, so it doesn't do as well as you think it would. Even though it is this nice little sports car package, it doesn't do well because Americans don't buy these types of cars enough to justify their existence in this market. It's kind of like bringing wagons to the United States. They're not really going to last. But this small package it hasn't been doing well for the Z4. It's never done well for the Z4, at least in the last like 10 years when bigger cars, bigger sports cars, heavier sports cars with more power have gotten more popular. It sucks because the Z4, like I said, I keep saying it, is this really, really, really good package that I think we don't appreciate enough in America. And it gets great gas mileage too. 26 miles per gallon. Of course, not when you're driving it like I am right now, but you know, you can get good gas mileage in it. I was on the highway earlier trying to pass a UPS truck at 60 miles an hour and I put my foot down all the way in and the car got squirrely on me at 60 miles an hour. That's not even something I'm used to. Not from the M4 wouldn't do that because of its all-wheel drive system and how intelligent the all-wheel drive system was. The Tesla doesn't do that because it's a Tesla and the way that curves work on it are different and everything like that, and the power band's different. But gosh, you know, I just have to I have to applaud BMW, and this is why I like the brand so much, is because I feel like every time I get in a car like this from them, it's a whole new package. And that's what makes me enjoy these cars more and more. So I don't know, we can wrap it up, but I gotta be honest with you, if it was maybe just a little bigger, okay, if it's just a little bigger, I in terms of interior space, it'd definitely be my car, but honestly, I'm sitting here and I'm pretty comfortable, so let's wrap it up. Now let me reiterate, and I know I've said this so many times, especially in the driving portion, but this is, in my opinion, the perfect package for a car. Lightest car in BMW's lineup, one of their best engines that they've produced in the last 10 years, the B58, a wonderful transmission, the perfect powertrain setup being rear-wheel drive, and the interior that it has, the class and the sexiness of the exterior styling, I really don't think you can go wrong with this car, and I think this is one of the best packages that you can get out of a German sports car. And the cherry on top is that this thing is at least $25,000 cheaper than it was new. 43 grand. For a lot of people, that seems just like, for a sports car of this caliber, that's pretty, just the value proposition is there. I only wish BMW sold more of these units. That way there could be more on the market, which would drop the price even lower, because BMWs depreciate. But $43,000, I think most people would sit here and say, hey, that's a hell of a deal, especially if they drive it and get to experience the dynamics of the car. I think BMW's just gotten down to this science with the the Z models over the last, 2 or 3 generations, that they really, I think they need to either make a better marketing push on this car or do something to get it into more people's hands. Maybe lower the price a little bit. Maybe, I don't think it's worth $70,000 out of the gate. But yeah, I think overall for $43,000 and, used, of course, this is the 21 and 382 horsepower rear-wheel drive. I really think this is a buy, people. I think you need to be looking at the Z4 as much as possible. I think prices are only going to get lower for it. And of course, you get a car that looks like it's worth a hell of a lot more than $43,000. Anyways, if you guys like the video, make sure to hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more from us, make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you all in the next video.